Mediane fa parte più che altro di un'idea del Consiglio d'Europa che nasce 3 anni fa, ma risale dei progetti dell'inclusione e delle diversità da metà degli anni 90. Mediane sta per i media in Europa per l'inclusione delle diversità. Ed è grazie soprattutto a Radio 3 che questo progetto è approdato e in questi 5 giorni si è svolto anche su questa terra lucana che è Matera. Sostanzialmente che abbiamo fatto? Eravamo 10 giornalisti più 2 noi organizzatori che si sono visti per la prima volta, 5 giornalisti stranieri e 5 giornalisti italiani che hanno creato 5 coppie di lavoro e che hanno avuto soltanto 4 giorni per raccontare Matera che non hanno visto mai, enfatizzando appunto questo concetto dell'inclusione e delle diversità. Si è trattato più che altro di produrre 4 servizi radiofonici e 2 servizi audiovisivi. L'aspetto molto interessante è che noi non abbiamo cercato di creare delle coppie di lavoro che sono consone dei media dai quali provenivano appunto i giornalisti, ma si sono create le cosiddette coppie miste di lavoro mediatiche, per cui quelli giornalisti radiofonici anche hanno lavorato con i giornalisti televisivi ed è uscito un lavoro molto interessante, speriamo. Assolutamente Mediane soprattutto è un progetto europeo, bisogna distinguere ovviamente che non stiamo parlando di un progetto dell'Unione Europea ma del Consiglio d'Europa, però l'aspetto che bisogna enfatizzare non è questo istituzionale quanto il messaggio che qui stiamo parlando dell'Europa cercando di, come dire, in qualche maniera superare delle maggiori lacune dei media europei oggigiorno che appunto escludono i maggiori gruppi di minoranze che non devono essere etniche, stiamo parlando dei gruppi come anche delle persone con delle disabilità, orientamento sessuali, le donne, sono i dati che sconvolgono quando guardiamo quanto questi gruppi di minoranze, che è brutto anche definirli così, sono presenti nei media oggi e appunto Mediane nasce per abbattere questi pregiudizi e più che altro anche insegnare ai giornalisti come includere le differenze nei media, però non in maniera banale, ma cercare delle storie e all'interno delle storie inconsapevolmente fare la differenza. Assolutamente, la cultura nasce soprattutto dalle diversità. Purtroppo, come tutti sappiamo, l'ispirazione, i maggiori progetti artistici sono nati nei maggiori disagi, no? È quello che alla fine ispira di più un progetto artistico. La cultura è soprattutto perseverare in qualche maniera. È brutto anche dire l'identità, perché che cosa è identità soprattutto per una città che è cambiata e si sta ricostruendo e sta cambiando ogni giorno, però la cultura è unica che riesce a rendere coesi tutte le varie sfaccettature della città e in questo senso la diversità e l'inclusione sono delle componenti principali importantissime per dare un supporto maggiore a questo grandissimo progetto di Matera, capitale della cultura 2019. Sono immerse delle storie molto interessanti e diversissime fra di loro, che è la cosa più importante, proprio come sono diversi anche tutti i partecipanti. 2 progetti video che abbiamo prodotto in questi giorni, innanzitutto una coppia ha scelto di non far vedere dei volti in maniera esplicita, ma far più che altro emergere dei suoni della città attraverso il video, attraverso soprattutto il tufo, che è il materiale che è un leitmotiv di questa città. Secondo video più che altro ha cercato di far accomunare e unire tutte le persone di questa città, stranieri che visitano per la prima volta la città e gli autoctoni, facendogli cantare tutti quanti la stessa canzone materana tipica, dunque molto interessante. Altri 4 progetti audio più che altro cercano di, attraverso i suoni, raccontare quello che era la Matera negli anni 50, dunque la vergogna dell'Italia, e quello che è oggi, cercando di dare la voce a tutti questi gruppi di cui parlavamo prima, esclusi apparentemente dai media, cercando di dare una nuova definizione di Matera e magari scoprire la Matera agli stessi materani da parte di questi giornalisti che sono per la prima volta, tranne le 2 giornaliste locali qui.
Renan Brignon, you've been involved in this project Mediane. Could you explain a little bit your title and what you've been doing?
So I'm Mediane Diversity Manager and the Mediane Program Manager within the Council of Europe. That is this European body made of 47 member states and working around the European Convention on Human Rights, its promotion and its defense. And so the main role of the Council is to defend human rights, rule of law and democracy. And in this, the Council of Europe started to develop different activities since the mid-90s to see how our member states and then the actor of the media industry can better include diversities of our society today in all the media content. So to see what sort of guidelines, what sort of means, what sort of training, what sort of ways of designing and producing media content could be better settled, implemented to include diversity. And we came here in Matera to implement this workshop linking 5 journalists living in Italy and 5 journalists coming from outside, and asking them to produce a piece, to produce a media report that will include Matera diversities, in fact, and to find ways to do it, knowing they were from different backgrounds, some from TV, some others from radio, and of course some from here in Italy and some from outside. So different ways of working, different ways of thinking about diversity, different ways of thinking about how including diversity. And so this is what we are doing. And the idea of Mediane, and I always insist on this, is we are not doing this, and the Council of Europe as a facilitator is not doing this because we are nice or we want to be kind people or we want to be politically correct. No, it's not our business. Our business is the European Convention on Human Rights, and one of the articles ensure the participation of all in the public and democratic debate. And this is why we are doing this, because, and I will finish on this, today too many groups of people are still excluded from media content. I will talk first about women. This is the worst situation. Women in Europe, and it's the same for every country, represent less than 25% of the actors of the news, as being an anchor, as being a first character, or as being in a secondary role or an extra role. And generally, women appear in most of the cases as a secondary role, or even worse, an extra role, meaning you're just in the background. If you take another example, is about people living with disability. In Europe, we know that people living with disability represent more or less 20% of the European population. But they only appear on screen in UK, but it's also the same in Belgium. This is where we've got some data, only for less than 1% of the actors of the news. It's the same figure for LGBT groups. They represent 6%, around 6-7% of the population in UK, but they represent only less than 1% of the actors of the news. Again, and I will finish with this group, ethnic minority groups represent around 12, 13, 14, we don't know exactly, of the European population, but they are only involved in the news for 10%. And as I always said, even if some efforts, initiatives have been developed by our member states and more globally by the media companies and mainly public service broadcasters like RAI, this initiative brought new perspective, new ways of thinking about diversity and about we can include them. But today, all the figures, when women appear in the news, they are in most of the case linked to health and education issues as an expert. They never appear about science, or rarely, and rarely appears on politics. It changed due to Angela Merkel in Germany. But observe the report, when women are talking, when women are experts, they are here to talk about health, education, maybe housing, but that's it. And when you take the example of ethnic minority groups, it is only, not only, but when they appear in the news, they appear mostly in sport and in around music and culture, entertainment. And most of these groups, ethnic minority groups, are also linked and involved in the news with regard to immigration issues and violence. Like, if there were nothing else to say about our I wanted to say our, but it's not our, it's also our, in a sense, all together, our debates of today, political debates, economical debates, cultural debates, whatever. The situation in Europe is so important with regards to crisis. You can't avoid groups of people like women, ethnic minority groups, disabled people talking about it and sharing their own views and ideas about this. Because, and I was mentioning people living in disability, this is the worst situation. Because as I said, they represent less than 1% of the turn of the news. And when they appear, they are only interviewed to talk about disability, nothing else. Like if a person living with disability were not able to share other ideas, thoughts, thinking, perspective, dreams, nightmares, whatever, no. You are going to talk about disability and how hard it is to live as a disabled people. And in fact, if you put the perspective, the angle in a different way, you will discover the expertise, competencies, background, history, and so on of these people. And media professionals could do very beautiful stories. And I think behind this is not only beautiful, it's also a way to renewing audiences. And when you look at the situation of the media sector, maybe their managers should sort on what diversities could bring to renew audiences, content, way of doing, and so on and so on.
Okay, so thank you. Under the title of Matera 2019, should inclusion be a big topic, do you think, as culture?
Yeah, I try to answer your question. I think the idea, well, the idea of culture, is probably what we, and when I said we, is us as Europeans, living in the same continent, but having a very different background or way of living, cooking, singing, playing music, whatever. But culture is also what we've got in common. I'm gonna take the example of Chopin living in Poland, going through Germany and France and so on and so on, and many artists, painters, Miro, Dali, whatever. We are sharing this, and today we are also sharing some culture, and I'm talking about European culture, not the one who's coming from outside, but we've got big artists in terms of cinema, in terms of theaters that we've got in common. That's why I think culture might be the link and the main link between people living in Europe, and not only those people populist parties could consider as the Europeans. And I will say culture that the Europeans could share, maybe the old Europeans and the new ones. And I think what we try to do also within such a program like Mediane, that is a joint initiative between the EU and the Council of Europe, is also to give a place of all these new Europeans. Not only, I'm not talking only about people coming from outside, I'm also talking about people that used to be excluded from the society in the past, and now we start to include them. And this includes also women, because when you look on the situation of women with regard to the media, it changed recently, but during the last 30 years, when you look at the head of media companies, most of them are men, and still now, it moves in terms of anchors, it moves in terms of journalists, anchors, whatever. But yeah, I think there are still many efforts to do to include everyone, and culture could be a way, yeah.
So as part of the Mediane project here in Matera, we have some guests. We've got some journalists from all over the world, including Kevin Reynolds from RTE, Ireland's national broadcaster. Perfect. Could you explain to us your experience here, what you're doing, and what you think of Matera?
Matera is wonderful. All of Italy is wonderful. It's a beautiful, beautiful place. It's so biblical, so strange, so original, so unique. I'm joking with my colleagues that I feel like I'm on an eating holiday in the Old Testament. So I'm being facetious, of course. Mediane is a very, very important project. It focuses on diversity, inclusivity in the media through either media journalism, media training, or how people are represented in the media in general. What I'm doing here is I'm working with a colleague from Rai Uno, and each of us are in pairs and we're making a project. Our project is focusing on the Sassi, which is the poor area, or the traditional poorer area, what was the poorer area of Matera. And we're exploring the whole idea of repopulating the population in the 50s, taking people out of what was essentially a ghetto, caves, phenomenal, desperate conditions to live in, resettling them outside, and then later on, after a barren period of about 20 years, the recolonization of the Sassi and the rejuvenation of that area of Matera.
And do you know why they chose Matera to do this project?
I think they did it because Materadio was on at the same time. So if you're doing generally speaking, I don't know, I can't speak for the Council of Europe, but generally with the EBU, if there's a meeting or if there's a project of any description, you try and piggyback on an already existing festival or an already existing event. So it gives a chance for colleagues from all over the world, but particularly all over Europe, to meet each other. So obviously this is in Italy. We have the privilege of meeting an awful lot of Italian colleagues.
And I don't know if you know, but Matera is candidate for European Capital of Culture. The slogan is now Open Future, so open to inclusion. Do you think it's something that can be worked on here?
I certainly think so, yeah. Where I come from in Ireland, our city of Limerick is the current European city of culture, and very, very successfully so also. And yes, I think it can. It's an amazing place. It's a very, very original and unusual place, and it would be great for people to come here. I mean, obviously people will know it from films. It's a film set in terms of The Passion of the Christ. Mel Gibson's film was made here, and also, of course, Pier Paolo Pasolini's film, The Gospel According to St. Matthew, was made here. So people will know it, and when you come here, it's amazing. It's like going to any place that's famous. It's like your first time in New York, or your first time in California. Your first time in Matera will be exactly as you imagined it.
Thank you. Well, I'll let you get back to work.
Pleasure.
Thanks. Thank you. So another pairing is with Mukti and Sissi. Can you explain what you do normally, and why you're here in Matera?
Okay, I work in London, and I own a production company called CultureWise, and we make documentaries for BBC Radio, largely BBC Radio 4, which is the main speech network in Britain. And for a long time I've been very interested in why and how we can bring better diversity into the mainstream of broadcasting. And I've been involved in a project via the Council of Europe with Reynald Blion for 7 or 8 years, and we've worked across Europe with journalists, television producers, radio producers in different countries, and I feel very privileged to be working with Sissi here in Matera, because she is like the fount of all knowledge of Matera, and she has even managed to make the church bells ring just for our sound effects. So how can you get a better pairing than that? In fact, she describes us as the two policemen, because policemen always work in pairs. So yeah. So that's why I'm here, and we were trying to find a project that we could represent Matera through the eyes of somebody who is from a minority group. And the story that we came up with is somebody that Sissi already had met, who is an Olympic marathon runner of Moroccan origin, who has been living in Matera for the last 8 years. And we managed to trace her, and she very kindly agreed to an interview, and that's what we're now editing.